it's funny because I think I pushed a lot of these guys to get outside their comfort zone from what not that they couldn't do anything, but it was just like not really what they were doing musically day to day. But this stuff is right up my alley. Like this is the I write songs the way of in the style of music, I guess, that I would listen to on my own more so than probably anybody else in the band. So there is definitely some of that late 80s and some early 90s vibes there.
This is Rob Ruckus.
Hey, this is Kate Clover.
Hey guys, it's Nick Collins here from The Effect and Better Strangers.
Hi, my name's Madeline Rose.
Hey, it's Ben McKelvey.
It's Tim Howard here from Mike and the Mechanics.
Hello, I'm Amanda Lehman.
I'm Billy Harvey.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Casey Sampson from the band Twist Stop.
Hey, it's Tony from Fastball.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isaiah Mitchell.
Hey, guys, it's Matt here from the White Lakes.
You're listening to Almost Famous Magazine.
Come join us for this interview. Check it out, Almost Famous Magazine.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to The Hang right here on Almost Famous Magazine's YouTube channel. Thank you to everyone who subscribed, rang the bell, shared our content and our channel. You know what to do. We appreciate it. Please keep up the effort and keep coming back for more hangs. Today, I've got a great hang. And again, we're going somewhat international. We have the Newbridge band, the band Newbridge. I already got Keith laughing. The band Newbridge is a powerful blend of Americana folk and roots rock from Halifax, Nova Scotia. That's still international.
That's still, it absolutely is.
That's still technically
more so international than ever before, to be honest.
I know that's technically still international. The band features Canadian music veterans Keith Maddison, Glen, Nicholson, Jeff Mosier, Warren Robert, and Robbie Crowell. Their new band, Past Lives, dropped on March 28th. I listened to it. It's amazing. You've got to hear it. We're going to talk all about it today. Keith and Glen, welcome to The Hang.
Hey, thanks for having us, Scott.
Absolutely. Wait, are you both in Nova Scotia right now?
We are, yeah.
Yeah. But you ended up recording in Nashville, correct?
We did, yeah.
So see, it's an international production, folks. We're gonna run with it. Gonna run with it. So you guys have been in a lot of bands before, worked with a lot of other musicians, everybody in the band. I'm curious to learn, and this goes back to how this all came about, is like, how'd you all come together from all these different bands and like the idea to form a project together? What was the germination of that, and where did it come from?
Yeah, so I could probably start that one. So Halifax, where we live, is not a very big city. It's the biggest city in Nova Scotia, but it's still like under 500,000 people, significantly, I think. And there is a strong, sort of traditional, historical music and music community here, but it's not that big. Kind of everybody knows everybody, or 2 or 3 degrees of separation. So, it would kind of this band, I guess I would say kind of started as a COVID project. I had a lot of time at home, and I had been doing a lot of songwriting, and Jeff Mosier, who's the bass player in this, he's a phenomenal soul singer and R&B musician as well. He's in a legendary band here called the Mellotones, which are an R&B cover band. And we're old friends, used to play in other bands together. And we got together to just play some covers and just sort of hang out during COVID. We were in each other's bubble, I think, for a little bit. I can't remember how that all went down. But we were just playing some songs, and he asked sort of out of the blue, was like, have you been writing anything new? And I said, actually, I have. And so I had the courage to play him a few songs, and he was really into it. And it kind of, I hadn't really done anything, I guess, like publicly with music in a while, in a few years. And so it kind of got the wheels turning in my head about like what we could potentially do. And so we had a lot of time, right? So Jeff and I just started talking a lot and texting, and it's like, could we get other people, like who would we get involved? And Glen came up, again, we're old friends too. And then Warren came up, and that's kind of how it started. And then we realized we kind of had this like Americana kind of country rock vibe thing going, and we recorded some demos. And another really good friend of ours is, sort of a Nashville stalwart now. That's Robbie Crowell, who's from here, but he's in Sturgill Simpson's band, and he was in Midland, and he was in Deer Tick, and he produces and records and all that stuff. So we sent him the music, and he was really keen to get involved. And then all of a sudden, we kind of had a band. That's really how it started.
Mm-hmm. And Glenn, what are your memories of those first conversations, and then hearing some of the early songs that Keith mentioned that he played, and like the thoughts of your mind going like, yeah, this works for me. What was that like?
Yeah, I think the first conversation was at like a lobster shack in Prince Edward Island, which is an island just off the coast of another island, Nova Scotia. Anyway, lots of islands where we are. But yeah, and Keith kind of, mentioned, but, as we said, talking to previous folks, it was just kind of, it wasn't terribly a serious proposition. When musicians run into each other, it's often like, what are you up to? What are you up to? And if you feel comfortable enough, maybe somebody will say, hey, we should play together sometime or do something. Or let's just screw around. That's whatever. So that was the kind of conversation. And then from there, like everybody's got a different way of demoing and presenting ideas, different ways of working. Keith's no exception to what a lot of people do is, iPhone recordings, anything that's on the fly that can capture the moment and convey somewhat of an idea. So, truthfully, and we've laughed about it quite a bit. I mean, the songs are there, but they're not fully, fleshed out. You don't know how like dimensional they are. You don't know, how what direction they're going to go. They're a very new, novel, exciting idea, but it kind of stops at that. So I think it was like probably the first time that we maybe played as a group where you start to hear like, the weight of certain songs, or you start exploring tempos and slight variations. And I think that's when it kind of sunk in. That I was like, okay, I think I understand what this is. It's not like a homage to one thing or the next. It's like, there's a lot of originality in it. And we wanted to convey, a certain weight to the music. And that was really interesting.
But Glen too, so like Jeff and Glen are buddies, and there's a funny story there. Jeff Mosier ran into Glen at a show somewhere else, and Jeff said, "Hey, I was chatting with Keith, and I want you. We were thinking that you'd be a great fit to be a drummer in this new thing." And Glen was like, "Yeah, that sounds great." And Jeff left, and Glen leaned over to his wife and was like, "I think he's got the wrong guy." Because we hadn't seen each other in a while, and it was just kind of out of the blue. So I think Glen was probably a little bit more skeptical than anybody that we were going to do anything from the beginning. Yeah.
Not that I'm a one-trick pony or a type kind of cast actor or whatever you call it, but my roots and experiences are like more on the indie rock side of things. And while I do enjoy alt country and, various genres of folk and whatnot. I thought I hit with a little bit harder intensity that I can't seem to dial back. So sometimes when somebody's like, oh, we have an R&B project or, not that was the proposition or a folk project, I'm just like, I don't think this is going to work.
But it did.
Well,
yeah.
Well, let's talk about that. And Jeff, Warren, and Robbie aren't here. And I'm interested in learning what you guys see that they bring to the band, right? And then also talk about something that Glenn just brought up. This is not your regular, let's say, genre of music to perform. I hear some things in there, and I know that people have talked about like some young influence and certain country stars. Kind of vibe it gave me, and I don't know if you remember this. I think it was late '80s, but remember the Thorns with cool. The Thorns with Matthew Sweet. I kind of got a little Thorns kind of vibe there.
Yeah, we've gotten that late '80s thing from a few other. Like, it's funny because I think I pushed a lot of these guys to get outside their comfort zone. from what not that they couldn't do anything, but it was just like not really what they were doing musically day to day. But this stuff is right up my alley. Like I write songs the way in the style of music, I guess, that I would listen to on my own, more so than probably anybody else in the band. So there is definitely some of that late 80s and some early 90s vibes there. There's some 70s rock vibe in there, and like you mentioned, the country and the folk thing. Like I'm like really heavily influenced by Tom Petty and Bob Dylan and the Eagles, and some great Canadian bands too, like Blue Rodeo, the Tragically Hip, Matt Mays, and all very, there's different things going on there, but all kind of connected to that sort of Americana sound, regardless, or Southern rock, or regardless of what decade you would fall in, it might have a different name. But
I think you're picking up on something very like that we've talked about, Scott, which is like, there's everybody has their beginnings in music and playing in basements or garages or wherever it may be with friends. And I think we can't get rid of the early 90s if we tried, so
we grew up through that. Yeah.
Matthew Sweet in different groups. And then I think what really kind of anchors the project even further back into the 80s would definitely be Warren, not just by age, but he is a kind of Swiss Army knife when it comes to 80s, not only like, prog rock, but like classic rock, with a nice like leaning towards, how should I, maybe like 80s pop rock. So it's like, you do get those like April. Well, he plays in April Wine, or did before at the coming on the end there. So I mean that kind of says it all. I think I don't think I really have to say much more. Like if you're coming from April Wine, you're going to bring some cool tricks with you.
But Robbie really grounded us too, and he also produced this record, Scott, and that is quite telling of the significant role that he played, right? Like we recorded a demo, and we kind of had this Venn diagram. The songs were all kind of in the middle of this Venn diagram, everybody coming sort of from a different space, which is what we wanted. We wanted this like kind of cool, funky like collaboration thing, and let the songs kind of go on their own journeys. Like we didn't want to create, like it was pretty early on in the process. We was like, okay, this is kind of like a folk rock Americana thing to an extent, but we didn't want to say we're an Americana band or Past Lives going to be an Americana record. We wanted this to be like a Newbridge record, right? Which is another reason why we wanted to be a band versus like the Keith Maddison Experiment or Glen and the whatevers, like we wanted it to be a band, something that we could all sort of rally behind, that band name and allow us all to collaborate equally. Having said that, it did, like I said, lean in that sort of Americana country rock world. And we got this guy, a good friend of ours, Robbie Crowell, who's playing with Sturgill Simpson down in Nashville. And he's playing with all these amazing musicians down there. We've got to get this in front of him. We got to get his 2 cents on it and think if there's a role for him. And so he was kind of that really cohesive layer that took all these eccentricities, I would say, musically, and really brought it together to sort of make this record, a cohesive thing.
Well, if the name of the band doesn't stick, you always could be like Glen and the Heavy Hitters if you want to give him credit.
Yeah, exactly.
Considering he said that his drum playing is a little on the heavier side. Glen, who are some of your influences? I've asked a number of drummers recently who their big influences are, and I've gotten some kind of left field kind of answers. So I'm always kind of interested because you're sitting there behind the band. Yeah, you're keeping the beat, right? And you're thrashing away, hitting stuff. But you do add some influence to the music. Who are some of the people who have had influence on your style?
Like I don't like harken back to too many generations like before. Like coming into the 90s, growing up in the East Coast of Canada, Sloan was a big influence for a lot of people out here, and yeah, the drummer for Sloan. He was a tremendous Andrew Scott, an amazing influence, super creative, very, very musical, very melodic with the drums, which is a hard thing for people to understand, but it is there. He has a certain swagger. And I think ever since Andrew Scott, that I look for that swagger in various drummers, and to the point where like I found some, a lot of drummers that go past swagger and almost present a certain character, about like how they hit things, how they enunciate things, how they might like, because drums are all about feel and approach. You can play in the basement till the cows come home, and it turns into something that might resemble martial arts more than it represents music. So it's that swagger that I think I've always looked for. There's a drummer from a band called Interpol, Sam Fragarino, and I near went off the road one time when I was listening to a podcast. I think it was a Rolling Stone podcast where the interviewer said like, your drummer's underrated, and I was like, he is appropriately rated. He has such a, and I had the pleasure of meeting him at one point in time, and it's completely different. It's almost like an actor playing James Bond or something the second he gets behind the kit, and it's so consistent, and it's like your favorite mystery novel character or something. It's just so cool. So that's, and then everything in between, Stephen Morris from New Order and Joy Division, these kind of drummers to me that really have that very distinct gait. Those are the ones I really like, because the flashy stuff, sit in a dark room long enough, you'll be able to do it. That stuff does not interest me whatsoever.
I'm going to tell you, if I had an award to give you, I would give it to you for being the very first Canadian guest to bring up Sloan, where I didn't have to bring up Sloan, because I'm a huge Sloan fan, and I've photographed them a number of times when they've been here in Dallas. And Andrew is an incredible player. So, dude, if you know him, you got to get him on the podcast now. You're obligated. You brought him up.
Sure.
But I've talked about Sloan all the time.
They're from Halifax too, Scott. I don't know if you know that, but yeah.
No, absolutely. It was really weird because the first time I learned about them, there was a college compilation album that came out, and I think The Best Day of My Life was on that. I think that's the name of the song, and it was off of B-sides, I think. And I heard it. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And then I became obsessed. And they were playing. The only date they had playing in the States was Canada Fest in Atlanta, Georgia, which made zero sense to me whatsoever.
Makes a lot of sense to keep an eye, but anyway,
you can say Atlanta, Georgia, and Delta Airlines. You can say Atlanta, Georgia, the Olympics. No one says Atlanta, Georgia, Canada. It just doesn't. I mean, it doesn't happen. And I tried to make it out there, and I couldn't. Yeah. And then fortunately, they they've played now twice here in Dallas, pack the room, and they're amazing. So, you got Glen, you made the episode for me. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nate, this is a brand new effort between you guys, and the people watching today may not be familiar. Very good chance they're not, or haven't even picked up the album yet. Let's walk through a couple of tracks that doesn't have to be singles. What I'm looking for is this. If I'm new to this and there's one or two tracks that you go, wait a minute, this is kind of, I hate to say the needle in the vein, but this is what gets you hooked. This is what gets you interested in our music. What would those two or three tracks be, and why? Let's talk about those.
Man, Glen, you take a crack at that. I think I'm too biased.
So just so I understand the question, from the record, what kind of really sum it all up?
Introduced to Newbridge, like what would be the best introduction?
I've always said that there's kind of two streams to Newbridge. There's this late 80s, early 90s highway FM radio version, and then I've always separated the songs between AM and FM just for conversational purposes. So I think like if someone was to understand the band, you'd have to straddle both lines. So I'll throw two. I think a song like Sand Somewhere has like the kind of the rock, the FM, the good times, the highway with the windows down, cruising through a New Brunswick beachland or something. And a song that kind of sits with me is something that's like kind of more on the AM sparkly kind of homage grouping would be Into the Blue. I think those two. And they're by no means like the most, but they're kind of seem to me the most concentrated versions of each group. They could captain each group of grouping within the record.
Now, Keith, you don't get off easy just for being biased. Do you agree with Glen, or do you have another song that you're like, hey, if I was just going to give, if I had a chance to play someone one song so they understood our band, it would be it. What do you?
You know, I think we live in this era now where, you know, albums don't really mean as much as they used to. And I think if you look at the first track of this record, it is the first track intentionally because we are trying to grab the listener, and it's Swinging for the Fences. And when I said I was biased, it's like some of these songs I have a stronger emotional attachment to, like their personal experiences or you know, something that is really resonating with me for one reason or another. And, you know, there's like some really strong references in that song to, you know, the open country and sort of my grandfather was a coal miner and, you know, worked really hard to get out of that life and ended up becoming, you know, an accountant later in life. And, that a story always really resonated with me about just really going for it. And so the song is kind of really loosely, like, you know, again, Swinging for the Fences, just kind of going for it. And so I really like that song. It really came together really well, I think, in the studio. I agree with what Glen's saying. I think there are two streams, but I think what's really interesting about that song is it straddles both. Like there is this kind of, you know, the choruses are really kind of like 70s or 90s rock, like maybe like the Wallflowers or something, like big heavy sound, but the verses are a bit softer and the lyrics kind of complement that a little bit with some question marks in there about, you know, what's going on and maybe in life or whatever. I mean, that's all up to the listener to sort of, you know, whatever resonates with them. But so that's one of them for sure. And just to completely disagree with Glen, I'll pick a different second song too. And that's
four. There's four, FYI. No, I'm just joking.
Oh yeah. Iroquois, I thought was it came together in a really cool way, and it's really stuck with me. Like the journey of that song. We did some demos here in Halifax before we went down to Nashville, and that was one of the songs that really didn't have a lot of meat on the bone at all. I think it was just me. I think it was just voice and acoustic guitar. And it kind of had like that Neil Young Harvest sort of vibe thing going on, a kind of a country waltz sort of thing. You know, the story of the song sort of came together. It's sort of about this, you know, the idea is sort of this maritimer, this Canadian guy ends up in a small town and sort of questioning his reality and whatnot. And the town's called Iroquois, which is a real place. And so that all kind of really stuck to me from an emotional standpoint too. But then when we got down there, you know, we were working with, you know, we had this really cool experience of like, and this is another thing that's really cool about Iroquois, I think, back to like how to introduce Newbridge or how to introduce people to our music is like, we got down there and started working on this song and then we brought in some other musicians, some Nashville session players. And it was this really like meeting of the minds, particularly on that song, you know, where we kind of had our take on it and then they listened to it and then they kind of had their take on it. And we all kind of like the streams crossed, you know, we all kind of jumped in and we really came up in my mind with like it was a magical experience. It was like something I'll never forget. But then I think in that song particularly, you can really hear that magic. And it really sticks out to me. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned your lyrics. I listened to the album and I'm like, I felt like there's a theme going on there. Can you tell us about kind of the theme and how your lyrics have kind of woven together experience for taking people on a journey with this album?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. That's another really interesting thing that you picked up on there. So kudos to you. But yeah, like we live in a part of North America that, you know, is underpopulated compared to other areas. It's pretty rural. Very rural. We have a lot of wilderness areas. It's not even small towns. We have a lot of space between our towns. A lot of the industries that are prevalent here, like farming and fishing and coal mining, aren't nearly as lucrative, I guess, as they used to be. So there's always, and then of course we're on the ocean, and every little town is kind of a port city in its own self, in the sense that traditionally, if things weren't going so well, you could jump on a boat and go somewhere else. And so a lot of these songs are kind of about that Canadian maritimer experience, like the Nova Scotian experience, that you may have to leave and go to other parts of Canada or the States. Because again, like a ton of people from this part of the world ended up in New England and New York for work, and all over the US too. And so there is that sort of theme of like these characters that are kind of, are from a place. I'm sorry. That's the other thing, is we live in a very traditional, like we're living one of the oldest parts of North America as well, right? Like from a settlement, I guess, European standpoint. And so, you've got these traditional values that are unique, that are hundreds of years old, and you've got people leaving all the time to go find opportunity somewhere else. And so, there's often jokes in Canada about people from the East Coast that leave to go to Toronto or somewhere else, and they stick out like a sore thumb because they're kind of like country bumpkins. They don't really know what the heck's going on in Toronto, but they need a job and they need to go make some money. And so a lot of that is kind of from that perspective of someone like getting outside their comfort zone, and maybe in a situation where their values, or what they're comfortable with, what they know, is being challenged kind of at a very core foundational level, and then what that kind of means for them and their experience. And then the other side of it, there is kind of a darker side to that as well. Like there's people that probably should have left here and have gone on to greener pastures, or and didn't for one reason or another, and they end up facing a lot of challenges in life for one reason or another, and getting other people caught in some of that as well. So there is kind of a theme throughout many of the songs like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're a lyric person, I tend to be very, very honed in on the lyrics. Great lyrics give you an opportunity. Either they paint a beautiful picture of the mind, or they give you an opportunity to ask yourself the questions of the content, right? What about me? What if I was in that painting? And you've definitely succeeded at that. So hats off to you for that one.
Well, thank you.
The album's now been out a little bit, and the summer is upon us. What do you guys have planned for the remainder of the year, and possibly a second album?
Yeah. So do you want me to take that one, Glenn, or you want to jump on it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like we still have some release shows to go, and we've just started that, launching the record, promoting it through various media streams, and then following up with live shows. This year, we'll try our hand at some festivals and whatnot as like the kind of summer goes on and summer rounds out. But just as we hope to kind of pick up some opportunities with the record, we'll at the same time be working on new songs, I think sooner than later, perhaps coming on the end of the summer. So it's every band, this is a new band, so there's that first kind of, every band seems to juggle live tour promoting of what's going on, and in the background working on something next. So right now we're in that push of this first this first record. From here, we'll probably get back in the studio soon enough. We've got some great support here. It's a very musical place, Halifax. There's great resources, great talents around. We'll be looking for the next recording experience sooner than later.
Well, excellent. Well, if you end up recording down in Nashville, I can tell you with 100% certainty that Almost Famous Magazine will be there to cover a show in Nashville. If you want to get all the way down to Texas, I'll be there for sure, the Dallas area. So looking forward to what you guys have in store. Here on The Hang, we do a couple things that we enjoy doing, and it just gets into the kind of, I think, the human side of who people are, right? Dreams, aspirations, and who they listen to. So one of the questions we pose is, if you had an opportunity to be creative with one other artist for one day in a studio, you can make music, you can make whatever art you want, but you get one person and one day to do it. Glen, who would that be for you and why?
Yeah, this is a tough one because it's the person I would choose is the very person I wouldn't want to have a conversation with at all. I wouldn't even want to really be in the same room, but I'd love to make music with Tom York for a day. You know, I'm a Radiohead fan, or a subscriber of that band. For most of my since they've been around. I wouldn't call myself like a super fan, but I do follow everything that Tom York does, independently and with other artists and symphonies and whatnot. And I find his music very, very thought provoking, questioning of like rhythms, times, like how things are built up in songs, but then really textural and stuff. So like, I think it would be a lot of fun to make music with Tom York for a day. I think I would skip the lunch part. I just don't think I want to. I don't think we would have much to talk about or to converse about. But to spend a day, and I could be judging. I don't know. From his music is evident that I would love to hang out with him. From interviews and different things, I think we'd be best as pen pals.
That that'll when they make the movie of that session, it'll be the most fascinating movie, because most of those biopics of musicians, they're in the studio, they're talking to other people. This will literally just be an entire music soundtrack of two guys hammering away at music but not saying two words to one another. Yeah. So easy to write that script.
Yeah, let's take away the pleasantries and just get right to it.
Could be a silent film.
That's great. That's great. Keith, how about you?
Man, I probably would pick Adam Grandusil, if I've got the pronunciation right, of the War on Drugs. I think he basically is the main songwriter, producer of their songs, their records now. And I just love what they're doing. I mean, it's not something I don't know if I would ever want to like emulate that. I would kind of hope that if we were to work together, it would be more about like reinforcing whatever I was trying to do. But it just seems like again, I'm all about like, trying to like, what's it like, lightning in a bottle, and I just feel like their records are full of that, and I think working with Adam would be a really, really cool experience.
Well, it's out there now on the internet. So You never know what could happen. Great things happen when we talk about opportunities like this with here on The Hang. So you never know. Everybody, you've got to go out and buy their music. As I say ad nauseum every single episode, these guys can't do what they do when they get paid a 23-cent royalty on Spotify. And although streaming is easy, you've got to be supporting your artists. You've got to support them with tickets. By buying tickets to shows. You've got to support them by buying merch. These guys are going to have this. They got this album on sale. All the links will be down below so that you can help support them in their efforts. With that, though, guys, what we try to do is also share some bands that people might enjoy listening to. And it's always interesting to know what other musicians are listening to. So, Keith, who are a couple of bands or musicians that you're listening to, whether it's your workout mix, your relaxation mix, just driving around the car? Who are a couple that you're currently listening to that if we're just sitting here having a beer, you're like, Scott, you gotta check these people out?
Excuse me. I've really gotten to know Sturgill Simpson's music through Robbie and his connections there. And, I think I really dove in on his record from like 2015. I think that was the one that won a Grammy. And then the new record, I just absolutely love as well. So that's been, I'm kind of that guy at a party that was like, everybody listen to this song, stop talking. So that would be, that would definitely be one. I also recently got put on to Sam Fender. I don't know if you know him out of the UK, young guy. He's got kind of a Springsteen vibe in like a British sort of way. So I've been listening to some of his stuff, and I've been really enjoying it.
Yeah, excellent. Glenn, how about you?
I've been listening to. I just purchased tickets, actually. Speaking of supporting artists and live show, I just got some tickets to see the British band Elbow in Montreal in October. They're a band that I've sort of not been lukewarm on over the years, but I like some songs. But their last like 3 or 4 records have been just really outstanding, and maybe it has to do with it's just I'm understanding them at the right time now. I don't know, but their latest record, Vertigo, is really good. They got a couple of singles that they're releasing, so I don't know if that means that an album's coming out. But back to what you were saying, Scott, about like lyrics and vocals and following that historically hasn't been my kind of number one. I go to the kind of the textures and the different things first before the vocals. But this group, Elbow guy, something, I forget his last name, but anyway, he's a tremendous singer. Other than that, kind of good local. I was just listening to this morning Brian Borchert, who's a member of the band, the Canadian band Holy Fuck. I don't know if you know them at all, but Brian has his own project called Dusted. Really, really, really great records. Blackout Summer in particular is one that just every time it kind of randomly comes on, I end up listening to the whole record a couple of times over.
Nice. And look, I'll just give Sloan another plug, because if you're not listening to Sloan, why not?
Why not?
Exactly. Guys, this has been great. Everybody go out and get the Newbridge album. Go out and support them on tour. They may end up being, Canada's biggest export that has no tariffs. I'll just put that out there that way. Yeah. They are a no tariff band. Go out, support Newbridge, see them when they play near you. We hope that you guys come down to the States, the lower states, I guess.
Love to.
Who knows? But down here, Nashville, Dallas, we will cover you guys for sure. Everybody, awesome. This has been great. Keith, Glenn, it's been fabulous getting to know you all. We wish you all the best in your success. And everybody who's watching, thanks for joining. Please share this with friends. Introduce them to new music. This is about supporting one another, which is more important nowadays than it's ever been before. So thanks, guys, for joining me on a hang. And everybody, we'll see you again soon.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Have a good one.